What's going on, y'all? Rob Anderson, Clean Power Wash, Salisbury, Maryland. So I've had a bunch of recent questions about upgrading pumps, business upgrades, process. What should I do first? What's a good pump? This and that. So I want to kind of start all over the place. One, I had somebody asking me a question about upgrading from 5.5 to a 10 gallon a minute instead of the 8. And I'm not saying 10 gallon a minute pumps aren't amazing, that they're not worth it or anything like that, but you have to look at the kind of work that you do to make sure that it makes sense to get such a high flow machine. If you're doing residential, you're going to run into some water issues, or have the potential to run into more water issues when you're running 10 gallons a minute. If you're somebody who's doing tons of concrete, yeah, you know absolutely for sure that you want that higher flow. 10 gallon minutes, 15 gallon minute, 20 gallon minute, whatever. You're always looking for more and more and more flow. Usually dealing with some hydrant hookups and some other high flow supply systems. So that covers it all in there. Okay. Just depending on the kind of work that you're doing, that would dictate what you're going to get there. Had somebody else asking about going from a 4 to a 4.5, on existing machine. Most of these machines that you have that'll run, say, a 4,000 psi, 4 gallon a minute machine. Again, overgeneralization, but you can usually swap that pump out for a 5.5 gallon a minute pump. You can still have it recirculate back to the inlet. The ideal situation, though, once you get to 5.5 and above, is to have that go to a buffer tank. Now, obviously, sometimes you can't make an upgrade because you don't have the space, you don't have the funds, it's going to cost too much to do all these different things. But realize that in growing your business, you do have to make these changes. Sometimes you're able to make just a simple, once you got a 5.5, you got a buffer tank. If you want to go to 8, you just buy an 8, hook it up, and you're good to go. With a 5.5, yeah, a lot of times you'll be able to run that off of a homeowner supply if you really had to. Again, the ideal situation is buffer tank. So at that point, then you're buying the buffer tank. You may have been able to get away with, when I had smaller machine, I literally had my Hyundai Santa Fe, and I had the tailgate rack, and I had my pressure washer and gas tank, and then I had my hose in the back seat. In order to go to a bigger machine, I had to have a 6x10 trailer. And then once I wanted to go to some of the bigger stuff and have more space for the whole soft wash system, having space for more hose reels, more equipment, and all that, I needed a bigger trailer. I had to upgrade. I had to go to stacked hose reels. So some of these things really do require you to make multiple capital investments into your business to do that. As far as particular brands or anything like that for 5.5 going from 4, that's something you can do the math, figure out the RPM, what you're going to get out of a pump and everything, shaft size and all that. I told Russ what engine I had, and he sent me I want to say it was an RKV pump. But sorry, going over some railroad tracks. But I am not the person to ask that. Ask any of your pressure washing vendors. Say, here's what I've got. What kind of pump do I need to go to 5.5? The other thing, we were talking with somebody about how much PSI does a isn't that important that it's 4,000 PSI versus 35 versus 3,000 PSI? Or a 5.5 at 4,000 versus the 8 at 3,500 or 3,000. The 8 all day long. Because to be perfectly honest, we can go with a smaller tip if we really needed to get that higher pressure. You don't want to go too small, but with our 8, our high pressure tip is a 2515. To get full PSI out of it would be a 2508, 25085 for our machine. we're not that concerned about it. There rarely would be a situation where we need a full 4,000 psi at 8 gallons a minute to get the job done. So I wouldn't obsess over that. You know, find your machine. 8 at 3, 8 at 35, 8 at 4,000. You're not going to notice a massive amount of difference. If you're buying this machine custom made or whatever, sure, get it at the 3,500 psi instead of the 3,000 psi model. You can always dial it down a lot simpler, bigger tips and everything. But again, ultimately that higher flow just allows you to clean so much faster, make more money. And I'm really and truly, until you actually get to experience having that higher flow, you don't even understand what you're missing out on. When I went from 4 to 5.5, it blew my mind. Then when I went to 8, I was like, OMG, where has this been my whole time? And everybody that we've had come visit over the years, when they try that 8 and they're used to whatever they're used to, blows your mind. So that's it as far as pressure washing upgrades. Again, with some of the equipment, yes, you can still get away with the same engine and just upgrade the pump. Sometimes you're going to be better off to not put a big pump on a quote unquote small engine. Having a proper GX690, 630 or whatever like that to power your 5.5 or 8 gallon a minute or bigger pumps. So have a great day.